going on, everyone out there in YouTube? Make sure you subscribe to Raze Chaos, otherwise, come get you.
And welcome back, everybody. My name is Raze Chaos. You've made it back to my channel. And, Raze jokingly made some comments in the last video about it being Black History Month. And if you really thought that Raze was going to leave it to just Red from us being the only thing he did for Black History Month, you were very much mistaken, because there's something that's out there that's very important and very pertinent to Black History Month as far as comics go. There are many comic books out there that will tell you all you want to know about civil rights, all about civil rights and everything, but there's only one that actually gives you a first-hand account from an actual U.S. congressman, a man who was number four as far as the speakers of the original Million Man March on Washington, and like I said, he was a long-standing member of the U.S. representative for Georgia. That man's name is John Lewis, and the book series I'm talking about is known as March, and it is all about his life and his experiences going through the civil rights movement, being a young black man. I don't know if it was originally put out in the 3 volumes that I have. I know you can get these slipcased to get them all at once, but these are very gorgeous. They're in black and white, and they start obviously with the first one showing the counter closed sign. This would be the Nashville walk-ins. Why are you still here? Yeah, you get to book 2, which you can actually see on there. You actually see him on the cover here speaking at the Million Man March, along with a firebombed bus representing the Freedom Riders. He was one of the original 13 Freedom Riders that started that movement all the way through the South. And then you've got book 3, which takes you beyond the Million Man March and the efforts to end segregation as things went. I mean, this is a real tour de force as far as civil rights goes. As far as looking at what one man was willing to do, and Raze could talk on this all the way around, but I think I want to go ahead and go through each book individually. That way I can give you a better sense of where the story goes. The first book, of course, is March, book 1, and it has the same creative team all the way through it. And this actually shows him as a young boy. This has him when he's very young, and basically he was born to a sharecropper, and even put as a small child, he was put in the situation that basically his family had to grow their food, not only that they ate, but the food that they would sell in order to live. And if he wasn't there, I think he was like one of give me a second here. I'm gonna have to take a look at this because I don't remember exactly how many siblings he had. Shows that he was this is the setup for the sorry about this. Try to keep as many small things going on here. Wow. Okay, it's not telling me how many kids he has. Okay, so Raze doesn't know how many siblings he had. I know it was a lot because, I mean, the sharecropper way back in like 1940, he was basically born into poverty. And a lot of people like to talk about poverty and explain things. But if there's anything that this book really showed me, this book in particular, really kind of showed me was John Lewis's desperation to be educated. Um, all he had was basically looking after the chickens in his for his family, and his only escape from that was actually school, which he had to convince his parents that he wanted to go there. And initially, my thought is like, yeah, how would you kid? But that comes from a place of privilege. Um, this really kind of shows you that difference. When you are that poor, when your existence is literally hand to mouth to, if you're not there to do the work doesn't get done and somebody goes hungry. When your only escape from that is running to school to learn, to make your life better, that says something a lot. And a lot of people like to say, oh, we've had a hard childhood. You didn't have to fight your parents to go to school to make your to make sure that you didn't stay exactly where you are the entire time. This really kind of shows an early hunger that he has, because he essentially has to abandon his family. They begrudgingly let him go, because why would you hold your kid back from school? But they actually have a bit in here where this is actually the book where he is part of the original Freedom Riders. He is also part of the original Nashville sit-ins, which says a lot, because he was actually born in Alabama. So for him to have been able to educate himself, show how much he was absorbing, in order to get smart enough to where somebody from Nashville thought, we can't leave this kid on a farm, and bring him up there, only to then start fighting the segregation that still happens in there. So there's a lot of showing him with the original sit-ins, peaceful protesting and going in and sitting in a place that you are not welcome and refusing to leave until you are served. And that literally meant they sat there until closing time. And sometimes they would flat out turn off the lights. Sometimes they just wouldn't open, all in order to fight having people of color eating at their establishments. And you really see that although it's such a small step, it actually led to so many things, because this is book one and it leads into where the march was going. Nobody's even talking about the Million Man March at this point. But he is getting attention, because he actually gets to meet Martin Luther King Jr. For the first time in this, and they even point out that he and some of the other protesters had actually read a comic book of Martin Luther King Jr. And his work up until then, and that helped inspiring them. So once again, Raze gets to talk a little bit about the history of comics and the impact that they've had on the rest of the world. Obviously, there were other things you could have read and everything, but when you have when you had this cheap and easily made product that only costed 10 cents, that got into the hands of people, that got ideas in people's heads. And to quote a famous protester in his own right, whose name starts with a V, ideas are bulletproof. And these guys were the original non-violent protesters that sat there in the face of being ridiculed and basically being threatened. In some cases, they were dragged out. They were beaten down in the street, but would not offer up a hand of resistance. They just took it. But they'd come back the next day, and to walk into some place where you know you're going to get beaten down, nobody wants you there. That's really saying something, and that shows a great deal of strength inside. So yeah, that's literally what the book one actually is all about. And by the end of it, you have people like starting to cave a little bit, but also the threat's getting more and more uh, more and more dangerous, I guess you'd say. The threat's getting scarier and scarier. I mean, they would put people in jail. They would gather up their protesters and put them in jail, and then turn the lights off in the jail because you weren't even allowed light at this point. But that takes us into book two, which this actually has the Million Man March. As I said, John Lewis was the fourth speaker, and one of the biggest details in there for that is that he was actually elected Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and he's only 23. He is part of this great big movement, and he is. I mean, this book was really, really hard to get through. Even after the sit-ins from the first book are considered a success, that doesn't stop people from. I mean, obviously the movements didn't go. If there was a segregated place, they would do sit-ins. When they got through with the diners, they would go to movie theaters. They would go to every establishment and stage sit-ins in order to get service, to stop the segregation that was going on. And in some cases, they literally would like shut the lights off and pump pesticide into the building while there were people still inside. And I mean, just the level of punishment that these guys put themselves through. It was really a testament to how much they felt what they were doing was right. And in retrospect, we can look at it and we can say, yeah, they did all that. They were right. They knew they were right. But at the time, it wasn't really 100% positive that any of this was going to do any good. As I said, he moves on to the different. I mean, he goes to jail. He sees many people that he's with like end up being beaten to death right in front of him. Some staged freedom rides that are basically. I mean, they had to get. I'm sorry, I'm stammering here, but this is really kind of intense. They have to stage. They have to set things up from the beginning of the ride to the end of the ride to make sure that they were going to make it there okay, and they had to know that where they were riding to, there was a place to stay once they got there, because you didn't really want to be wandering around, forcing people to accept your patronage when, I mean, it's very clear in this, nobody that has any position of power wants them there. For the most part, you see that it's not so much people in general, so much as it is extremists that they feel like, hey, why do we have to let them ride our buses, that kind of thing. And yeah, you see some of these did not go very well. They would be on the bus, and then suddenly the bus driver just leaves. About in the middle of nowhere, the bus driver would just hop off the bus and leave them there. Maybe had like a had planned ahead as well, and had somebody there ready to pick that driver up and take him out of there, and everybody staying on the bus to provide, this is their protest, like we are riding this bus like anybody else should. And then, when the sun goes down, you never know what's coming after them. And in some cases, it would be pitch black. There's a bus full of people who are dealing with, I mean, you've got men, women, and children, white, black, both, like on these buses. And sooner or later, those White Hoods start showing up, telling them exactly how not wanted they are. And again, to know that you're walking into that kind of danger and still do so just speaks volumes of how committed they were for their cause, and willing to give up their life for it. And yeah, in some cases, they'd have to wait it out because the bus was basically sabotaged to begin with, and they'd be stuck out in the middle. And I mean, this is in the South. This is not in the most tepid of terrains to deal with, and but even sometimes buses were sabotaged. Sometimes the buses simply just broke down. But either the case, you didn't want to be stuck there, because then you were just a sitting duck, and just the terror that people would inflict on people in order to keep people from getting the same thing everybody else gets is absolutely insane. And to imagine that this man had already gone through a movement of his own to, as far as the sit-ins go, to now be involved in this. And John Lewis is, as far as the speeches go, as far as the Million Man March, like I said several times at this point, let's face it, he was the fourth person to speak, but his speech was one of the most edited and unwelcome as far as all the speeches go. And even then, you have situations involving his memories of being there and speaking to people. In this book, he actually meets Martin Luther King Jr. not as a young, starstruck young man, but almost as an ally. He's grown in his stature to the point where everybody's just like, hey, you've been through all this. You're really working towards this. And one of the things I appreciate the most about this book in particular, because the book actually has his whole speech being written out as he told it, and that's really a big deal. But at the back of the book, you actually have the original draft of his speech, so you can actually read what he had initially intended to say, but and how it was edited down. But they give both the original and then the historical accurate speech that he gives in the book, and that's just invaluable. To have both of them in one book is just absolutely, I mean, that's just. Book 3 comes up again. This is after the Million Man March, the repercussions of it, what changed, what didn't immediately, and basically to think, if you thought that the Million Man March pretty much just came in and ended it all, you're very much mistaken, because you had you had to have people standing next to the voting ballots to make sure the votes were coming in. You had to have the National Guard there to make sure that that voters were able to vote and not be like bullied away from it. Because things were starting to change, and change is never comfortable, but change is absolutely necessary in all societies, in all situations, in everybody's life. You must have, as uncomfortable as change is, and as unhappy as it is to have to make changes, if you're not changing, if you're not growing, you're essentially suffocating. And that's, again, to go back to the education part. To never stop learning is the best way of maintaining your youth. And you're talking to an old Raze who's been around the block a few times, but if you got the opportunity to learn something new, you absolutely should take it. And there has been plenty of history that has been covered up, hidden, and for no reason other than to keep other people from having to learn. Um, and Raze does want to get a soapbox, but yes, this does take us through post March, post Million Man March, and this basically takes us to an area that refused to stop segregation. If you thought the second book was bad, the third one gets even worse, um, as to how desperately people want to cling to archaic ways. Um, it's kind of hard to understand why they don't want to change. From today's standards, it's really hard for somebody like me to understand why these people being exactly the same but being treated differently, and why some people want to keep another people down. The only reason people keep anybody down is to make themselves feel better. And I can tell you from my experience is bringing people up as you grow. One, Raze loves needing people that are smarter than him. Because just knowing somebody and talking to somebody smarter than you will actually make you smarter, and it will expand your horizons, it'll expand your mind, it'll keep you growing. And so yeah, to Raze is always happy to talk to somebody who's experienced more than he has. It's getting harder and harder the older he gets, but it's not impossible. And there are plenty of people that did a lot of big things in history that you can learn from, that are available in these wonderful, wonderful books. And not just comic books, but, well, you know where Raze's love is. But this is the most violent of the three books. And, again, stopping segregation, trying to get the one man, one vote, talking about the attempts of gerrymandering and trying to keep people from being able to vote for what they wanted. And this in particular, they talk about the three rides to Selma. And John Lewis was part of one of the rides and one of the most violent rides to Selma. And it's actually referred to as Bloody Sunday, or that's what it ends up being known as. So his work didn't end after the Million Man March. Clearly not, because he, by 1986, he was elected to Congress, and he stayed there pretty much throughout his, towards the end of his life. But to read what he was doing when he was a 25-year-old man, and really in the thick of things, it's a very different world, and reading about it. And Raze has been to the South, and he sees how little has actually changed down there. But it is still miles away from where it is in this retelling. So, yeah, again, Congressman John Lewis, National Book Award winner. I just saw that here. That's kind of cool. And basically his story. It's his story all the way up until he got into the point where he was in a position to actually do something within the government. And it's one of, on the back right here, it flat out says, is one of the most important graphic novels ever created. And it really is, it's really being told from the perspective of the man that was there. This is Congressman Lewis's story. This is John Lewis's story. This is how he grew up. This is a man who was born, had a purpose, and saw to it to the very end. And it's intense. Where is it? So Raze wanted to show off this one little thing that he actually got. The March books are what they are. They are the three books of March, and that's very, very, very. You get these. You've got basically you've got the story he wanted to tell, the part of his story of his life that he wanted to tell. Um, and Raze knew about this, but he hadn't acted on it because, quite frankly, he could only generally find like one of the three books, and it was never book one. It was always book two or three that Raze would run into, and Raze being Raze, he wouldn't buy the third one. He wouldn't buy the third one before he had a chance to get the first two. So he did get it, and as you can see, the books get thicker as they go. It just shows you how much meat there is to the story and everything. But right before, not long before he passed on, it was one of the last things that he had done. John Lewis actually started a sequel to March, and it was called Run. And Raze hasn't read this one yet. Yeah, this is, I'll just read the back flap to you. The back flap, okay, yeah. Well, the front part of it is, to John Lewis, the civil rights movement came to an end with the signing of the Voting Rights Act on August 6, 1965. But I mean, he continued to fight for civil rights well after that, but that was pretty much the time, though, that was part of the strides. I mean, he'd essentially worked through segregation and getting through the voting rights issues and everything. And this one picks up right after that, and it takes you through right after signing the Voting Rights Act, and it shows him basically dealing with a lot of the Klan. That was his his arch enemy, so to speak, and it recounts the highs and the lows of the movement, fighting to harness their hard-won legal rights, legal protections to become the electoral force as the Vietnam War consumes the American landscape. So this basically leads into the Vietnam War, which there was a lot of trouble there too, as far as having a draft where you can be drafted to fight for your country, that where you weren't even allowed the same rights as your fellow soldiers. And I mean, it's all very deep, it's all very heavy, but yeah, Raze wanted to show these off. Like I said, Raze hasn't read this one yet, but he is definitely looking forward to it. But the amount of books Raze has to read is taller than him. But I hope you've enjoyed this little taste. If you're upset that Raze hasn't gone into more depth in these, there's a purpose for that. Raze wants to make you aware of these things, give you a little bit of a taste. That's why he gave you more of the first two books than he did the third one and the sequel. It is basically to whet your appetite, to spark the interest in there, because Raze doesn't want to just tell you about these. Raze wants you to experience them as well. So if this has triggered you, if this has sparked something into you, if you've never heard of these books before, but you're definitely interested now that you know, this is the purpose that Raze has with this video. Because Raze isn't about telling people stuff, he's about spreading knowledge. And yeah, he'll sing all day about comic books and stuff like that. But when it comes to real world history, it's best that you learn yourself. You find your own veins, find your own wells or mines, whatever you want to, and just start digging. Because there's nothing more satisfying than feeling like you've lived a little bit of history, which these books are really good about doing. So I hope I've inspired you to dig into some of these if you're interested. If you're not, well, you probably haven't even gotten to this point in the video. But but if you have gotten this far, Raze appreciates you. Hope even if you're not going to go check these out, that you have a great day, that you continue on your journey of knowledge, and never forget, life is full of odd moments. You never know when you're going to be defined.